There are moments in life when you will meet people who seem to take more than they give. They drain your light, they question your worth, and they make you doubt the beauty that lives within you. These are the people who wrap their bitterness in charm, their insecurity in control, and their weakness in judgment. And the hardest truth to swallow is that sometimes these people aren't strangers. They can be family, friends, colleagues, or even someone you once loved deeply. But no matter who they are, you must learn the art of protecting your spirit, because your peace is not something you can afford to lose. The smartest way to deal with toxic people is not through hatred or confrontation, but through understanding, distance, and mastery of yourself. You see, you cannot change a toxic person by explaining your pain to them. You cannot teach them kindness by showing them yours. They do not respond to empathy. They feed on it. When you argue with someone who has made misery their home, you step into their world and they win. Because that is where they thrive, on confusion, control, and chaos. They love when you defend yourself, they love when you explain, and they love when you try to fix them. That's how they keep you entangled in their web. But the moment you go silent, the moment you refuse to feed their hunger for reaction, they lose their power. Silence is not weakness, it is wisdom in motion. It is the shield of a soul that has learned the power of stillness. There is a certain beauty in realizing that you do not owe anyone access to your peace. You can love people from afar. You can forgive them without letting them back in. You can wish them well and still close the door behind them. You do not have to justify your boundaries to anyone who does not respect them. The smartest way to deal with toxic people is not by proving your worth, but by walking away knowing you already have it. When you stop trying to convince others of your goodness, you begin to live in it. You stop chasing explanations and start protecting your energy. Toxic people are like storms. They can twist, spin, and destroy everything in their path if you stand too close. But from a distance, they are powerless. Their noise cannot touch your calm. Their chaos cannot shake your stillness. You must learn to be the observer, not the participant. When someone tries to pull you into their drama, pause and ask yourself, is this worth my peace? If the answer is no, then your silence will be your strength. Because not every battle deserves your sword. Some battles are won by walking away with grace. There is a misconception that strong people always fight back. But true strength is often quiet. It's in the woman who chooses not to argue with someone committed to misunderstanding her. It's in the man who no longer explains himself to those who refuse to listen. It's in the heart that learns to detach without bitterness. Strength is not loud, it does not seek revenge, it does not demand recognition. It is the calm that follows the storm inside you when you finally decide that peace matters more than being right. Sometimes, toxic people will disguise their control as care. They will tell you they are only trying to help, only trying to protect you, only trying to guide you. But pay attention to how you feel after speaking to them. Do you feel smaller? Do you feel guilty for being happy? Do you question your own decisions? That is not love. That is manipulation dressed in concern. Real love empowers, it lifts, it encourages. It gives you room to breathe, to grow, to become. Toxic people will try to make you believe that you cannot survive without their approval, that you owe them your loyalty, even when they've given you their pain. But you don't. You owe yourself the freedom to heal. And healing begins with distance. It begins with saying no more. It begins with choosing silence over explanation, boundaries over guilt, and peace over chaos. Do not fear being alone. Loneliness is not the absence of people, it is the absence of peace. When you start valuing your peace, you realize that being alone is far better than being surrounded by the wrong energy. You realize that silence is a sanctuary, not a punishment. It's where your soul can breathe again. Toxic people will try to pull you back with guilt. They will say you've changed, that you're cold, that you don't care anymore. But remember, people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always call yourself. Respect an attitude problem. Don't let their words shake your truth. You didn't become distant, you became self-aware. You didn't stop caring, you stopped accepting disrespect. You didn't grow cold, you stopped burning yourself to keep others warm. You cannot heal in the same environment that broke you. You cannot grow when someone keeps cutting your roots. You must remove yourself from what poisons your spirit. And sometimes that means saying goodbye to people you love. That is the hardest part. But love should never hurt your soul. Love should not make you question your worth. Love should not exhaust you. You deserve connections that feel like sunlight, not shadow. And you will never find that if you keep giving your heart to people who only know how to take. When you start to rise, toxic people will often try to make you feel guilty for leaving them behind. But remember, not everyone is meant to go where you're going. Some people are lessons, not destinations. They teach you how not to love, how not to trust, how not to treat others. And when their part in your story is done, you must let them go with gratitude, not anger. Because even pain is a teacher. Even heartbreak carries wisdom. You do not have to hate toxic people to move on from them. Hatred only keeps you bound to their energy. You must free yourself completely. Forgive them, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Let forgiveness be your release, not your reconciliation. You do not have to invite them back into your life to prove your healing. You simply have to let go of the emotional grip they once had on you. The smartest way to deal with them is to rise so high that they can no longer reach you. When you rise, they will notice. They will test your silence. They will try to provoke you, to remind you of who you used to be. But that's the thing about growth. It makes you unrecognizable to those who still live in their wounds. They will not understand your peace, your stillness, your detachment. They will mistake it for indifference, but it is not. It is evolution. You've outgrown the need to respond to every insult, to defend every decision, to explain every move. You've realized that your time is too precious to waste on those who refuse to change. There is an art to mastering your emotional distance. It's not about being cold or cruel. It's about choosing what deserves your energy. When someone tries to pull you into negativity, you must remind yourself that reacting gives them power. The less you respond, the more they reveal themselves. The more you stay calm, the more their chaos exposes them. You don't have to prove your innocence to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You just have to keep living your truth. And when your peace becomes unshakable, toxic people lose interest. Because they feed on reaction. They need drama to feel alive. They need attention to feel powerful. And when you stop giving them that, they're forced to face their own emptiness. That is their karma. Not your revenge, not your bitterness, but their own realization that they no longer control you. Sometimes the smartest response is none at all. You cannot reason with someone who does not value honesty. You cannot connect with someone who only listens to respond, not to understand. The moment you realize that your peace is more valuable than being understood, you begin to walk a different path. You start living for peace, not approval. You stop trying to fix what's broken and start building what's new. There's something powerful about quiet growth. When you no longer announce your plans, when you no longer explain your choices, when you move in silence and let your peace speak for itself, life begins to change. Toxic people lose access not because you block them, but because you no longer vibrate at their level. They can't find you where you're going. And that's the beauty of emotional maturity. It lifts you beyond the reach of those who once pulled you down. One day, you'll look back and realize that the people who hurt you the most were the ones who taught you how to protect your energy. You'll see that their cruelty forced you to find strength you didn't know you had. And though their presence once felt like poison, their absence will become your medicine. Because peace is not something you find, it's something you build. It's a daily decision to not let others control how you feel. It's choosing calm over chaos, wisdom over reaction, self-respect over approval. You are not obligated to keep anyone in your life who makes you doubt your worth. You do not have to entertain conversations that steal your joy. You do not have to respond to negativity with more negativity. You can simply walk away. There is no power greater than the one who knows when to leave the table where love is no longer being served. That is not weakness. It is wisdom. And wisdom will always tell you that your energy is sacred. Every word you speak, every thought you entertain, every emotion you give, It all shapes your reality. So when someone tries to pull you into their darkness, do not follow them. Stand in your light. Protect your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. A disturbed mind cannot create a peaceful life, and no one is worth your inner chaos. You deserve relationships that water your soul, not drain it. You deserve conversations that inspire, not exhaust. You deserve people who celebrate your growth, not resent it. And the moment you stop tolerating toxicity, you make room for that kind of love. You invite peace, respect, and authenticity into your life. You attract people who match your frequency because you no longer settle for less. Life will keep testing your boundaries until you learn to enforce them. Toxic people will keep appearing until you master the art of emotional detachment. And when you finally do, when you stop letting other people's chaos control your peace, you become unstoppable. Not because you fight harder, but because you no longer fight at all. You simply choose calm. You choose silence. You choose yourself. So the smartest way to deal with toxic people is not by exposing them, arguing with them, or trying to fix them. It's by mastering the one thing they can never touch: your peace. Because when you control your energy, you control everything. You become untouchable, unbothered, and free. And freedom, my dear, is the loudest silence of all. Silence is not the absence of strength, it is the purest expression of it. When dealing with toxic people, silence becomes your greatest weapon, not because it hides your emotions, but because it protects your peace. You see, toxic individuals thrive on reaction. They provoke, manipulate, and twist your words, not because they seek truth, but because they seek control. The moment you react, you hand them the very power they crave. They live off your emotional energy. The more you argue, the more they feed. The smarter you become, the quieter you get, because silence confuses those who expect chaos. It denies them the satisfaction of knowing they've affected you. It makes them question their own influence. When you choose silence, you stop validating their behavior. You refuse to participate in their game. You no longer explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Toxic people don't listen to understand. They listen to respond, to twist, to win. And once you realize that, you stop wasting your breath. You start realizing that your peace is not up for negotiation. Silence is not surrender. It's strategy. It is the decision to keep your dignity intact rather than lowering yourself to their level. Every time you choose silence, you reinforce your power because you're no longer driven by the need to be understood. You're anchored in the truth of who you are. Arguing with toxic people is like trying to teach a stone how to feel. It's exhausting, thankless, and futile. They thrive on your frustration, and the more emotional you become, the more they feed off it. But silence cuts the cycle short. It ends the endless back and forth. It brings discomfort to those who expect you to react, and that discomfort becomes their mirror. They're forced to sit with themselves, to face the noise they've been projecting onto you. And even though they may never admit it, your silence becomes the loudest thing they've ever heard. There's a kind of calm that comes when you stop explaining your worth. You realize that not everyone deserves an explanation, a response, or even your presence. Silence teaches you restraint. It teaches you self-control. It's not about avoiding confrontation. It's about choosing battles that are worthy of your energy. Toxic people crave chaos, and when you don't give it to them, they are left with their own emptiness. Your silence exposes them in ways your words never could. It shows them that they can no longer reach you, that you've outgrown their noise. And the truth is, silence doesn't just protect you from others, it heals you. It gives you space to think, to breathe, to realign your emotions. It allows clarity to settle where confusion once lived. It reminds you that not every action deserves a reaction. The moment you stop defending your peace and start preserving it, you shift the power dynamic completely. Toxic people lose their hold when you no longer engage. Silence becomes your statement, your boundary, your strength. It is not about pretending nothing happened. It's about rising above what no longer deserves your voice. Protecting your peace is more powerful than proving your point, because peace is not just the absence of conflict. It's the presence of clarity. When you're constantly trying to prove yourself to people who don't value your truth, You drain your energy on a battle that can never be won. Toxic people don't argue to find understanding. They argue to dominate, to manipulate, and to control. They twist facts, play victim, and create confusion until you begin to question your own reality. The more you try to defend yourself, the deeper you fall into their trap. But the moment you decide that your peace is worth more than being right, you take back control. You realize that silence and distance speak louder than justification ever could. Peace is the quiet strength that keeps your mind calm, even when chaos surrounds you. When you stop needing to prove your intentions, you stop giving others the authority to define your character. There's freedom in letting people think what they want while you stay grounded in who you are. Not everyone deserves access to your clarity, and not everyone is capable of seeing your truth. The people who truly know your heart will never require constant explanations. And the ones who twist your words for their gain were never meant to understand you in the first place. Protecting your peace means recognizing when a conversation serves growth and when it serves destruction. It means stepping back from the noise and choosing not to let every misunderstanding disturb your calm. Proving your point often becomes an emotional habit. You want to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. But there's a moment of liberation when you realize you don't have to convince anyone of your worth. Your peace is not up for debate. You can let people misjudge you without losing sleep over it. You can walk away from arguments without feeling defeated. Protecting your peace is not about giving up. It's about choosing what matters more. It's choosing to be centered rather than scattered. Because when your energy is constantly spent defending yourself, you have nothing left to build yourself. Peace becomes your power when you understand that your reaction is your responsibility. You can't control how others treat you, but you can control how you respond. Some people speak to provoke, to test, to drain you of your calm. But when you stop reacting to every jab, you become untouchable. You start to see that peace isn't passive. It's discipline. It's the discipline to not respond to every accusation, to not attend every argument, and to not engage every time your character is questioned. You learn that being right is not as valuable as being calm. Protecting your peace transforms you. You begin to understand that silence can say what words cannot. You start valuing your energy more than your ego. You stop fighting battles that only lead to exhaustion. You stop chasing closure from people who are not capable of giving it. You start creating space where your peace can breathe, where your heart can rest, and where your energy can rebuild itself. Distance is the highest form of self-respect because it teaches you that love and boundaries can coexist. It's not always about walking away with anger or resentment. Sometimes it's about quietly choosing yourself when someone keeps choosing to hurt you. Distance is not rejection, it's protection. It's a declaration that your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being matter more than someone else's comfort. When you start putting distance between yourself and toxicity, you are saying to the universe, I am no longer available for pain disguised as love. You stop entertaining conversations that drain your energy and situations that pull you away from your peace. You begin to value silence over chaos and solitude over manipulation. Distance is not the absence of care, it's the presence of clarity. There comes a time when you realize that no amount of explaining will make someone understand you. No amount of giving will make them appreciate you. And no amount of patience will make them change. That realization is your awakening. It's when you learn that staying close to people who constantly disrespect your boundaries is not kindness. It's self-abandonment. You start seeing that the more space you create, the clearer you see who truly values you and who only values what you can do for them. Distance gives you perspective. It removes the noise so you can finally hear your own thoughts again. It reminds you that not everyone deserves proximity to your soul. Distance is not about punishing anyone. It's about preserving yourself. It's about saying, I love myself enough to walk away from what breaks me. You can forgive people and still keep your distance. You can care deeply and still say, this is not healthy for me. Too often, we equate closeness with love, but real love does not suffocate. It gives space to breathe, to heal, to grow. Distance gives you room to remember who you are outside of someone else's expectations. It allows your spirit to recover from the weight of always trying to fix what was never yours to carry. When you choose distance, you take back your power. You stop seeking validation from those who never valued your presence. You stop begging for understanding from those who only listen to respond. You stop apologizing for needing peace. Distance teaches you that your energy is sacred and that protecting it is not selfish, it's necessary. The more you distance yourself from chaos, the more you reconnect with your calm. You begin to see how much time you wasted trying to make things right with people who found comfort in making you wrong. There is peace in knowing that you don't have to explain your absence to anyone who caused it. You simply step back, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself. Distance shows maturity. It shows you've learned that not every relationship deserves endless chances. It reminds you that peace is not found in proximity to others. It's found in proximity to yourself. Forgiveness is for your freedom, not their redemption, because it releases you from the emotional prison built by resentment. Holding on to anger and hurt may feel like strength at first, but over time it becomes a burden that weighs on your heart. You carry their actions, their words, their betrayal, as if keeping them close will somehow protect you from being hurt again. But all it does is keep you bound to the very pain you're trying to escape. Forgiveness is not about pretending it didn't happen or excusing what they did. It's about saying, "You no longer have power over my peace." It's not about giving them another chance, it's about giving yourself one. It's a decision to set yourself free from the emotional chaos that comes from replaying the past over and over again in your mind. When you forgive, you reclaim control over your energy. You stop letting someone else's actions dictate your mood or your worth. Forgiveness doesn't mean you forget. It means you remember without allowing it to destroy your spirit. You can carry the lesson and leave behind the pain. You can let go of the bitterness while still holding on to the wisdom it gave you. The truth is, forgiveness is not a favor to the person who hurt you. It's an act of self-love. It's a declaration that you deserve peace more than you deserve revenge. Because revenge might satisfy the ego for a moment, but forgiveness nourishes the soul for a lifetime. People often misunderstand forgiveness as weakness, as if forgiving means you're letting someone off the hook. But real forgiveness requires strength. It takes courage to look at what broke you and decide it will no longer define you. It takes grace to say, "You hurt me, but I will not become like you." Forgiveness is not about minimizing the pain. It's about refusing to let the pain consume you. It's standing tall in your power and saying, "I choose peace even when you chose to hurt me." That is strength disguised as softness. That is freedom disguised as surrender. Forgiveness also gives you back your focus. When you stop carrying old wounds, you make space for new blessings. The energy you once spent on anger becomes energy you can now use to grow, to heal, to create. The moment you stop looking backward, you start moving forward. Forgiveness untangles your heart from the knots of what was and opens it to the possibilities of what can be. It allows your spirit to breathe again, to trust again, to love again. Not because everyone deserves it, but because you deserve to live free of the past. You do not forgive because they apologized. You forgive because you are tired of carrying the weight. You forgive because peace feels lighter than pain. You forgive because your future deserves more space than your history. And in that choice, you find your liberation. Forgiveness does not change the past, but it transforms your relationship with it. It gives you permission to step forward without bitterness clouding your heart. Detachment isn't coldness. It's emotional intelligence. It's the quiet understanding that you can care deeply and still choose peace over chaos. It's the wisdom to know when to stay and when to step back, when to love without losing yourself, and when to let go without bitterness. Detachment is not about indifference. It's about balance. It is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. It means you no longer allow your happiness to depend entirely on another person's behavior or approval. You stop chasing validation from those who can't see your worth. You stop trying to fix situations that aren't meant to be fixed. You stop bleeding energy into places where it is never reciprocated. You start understanding that protecting your emotional well-being is not selfish, it's survival. There's a misconception that being emotionally detached means you don't feel. But the truth is, you feel everything. You just don't let those feelings control you. Detachment teaches you how to be fully present in a situation without being consumed by it. You learn to observe your emotions instead of becoming them. You learn to respond instead of react. You start realizing that not everything deserves a reaction. Not every opinion deserves your defense, and not every insult deserves your attention. Emotional intelligence is knowing that silence often says more than words ever could, that walking away can be louder than shouting, and that inner calm is the truest form of strength. When you practice detachment, you stop expecting people to be who you want them to be and start seeing them for who they are. You stop rewriting their patterns, stop giving endless chances, and stop hoping that your love will change them. You begin to accept people's behavior as a reflection of their character, not your worth. Detachment allows you to love without attachment to the outcome. It teaches you that your peace cannot depend on how others treat you. You can give love freely, not because you want something back, but because love is part of who you are, not something you must earn or beg for. You no longer chase closure or cling to people who are clearly showing you they're not ready to grow with you. You begin to say, I love you, but I love myself more. Emotional detachment is not a wall, it's a boundary. It's not about pushing people away. It's about knowing where you end and they begin. It means you can listen without absorbing, you can help without enabling, and you can forgive without forgetting your worth. When you are detached, you stop over-identifying with others' emotions. You realize their moods, their words, and their behavior are theirs to manage, not yours to fix. You understand that compassion does not mean carrying someone else's pain. You can empathize without drowning. You can care deeply without losing yourself in the process. That's what makes detachment powerful. It allows love to exist without suffering. People often confuse detachment with arrogance or distance, but it's actually one of the most compassionate acts you can practice. Because when you detach, you no longer demand that others behave a certain way for you to be at peace. You stop trying to control outcomes. You let people make their choices, even when you know they'll lead to pain, because you finally understand that everyone must walk their own path. You let go of the illusion that you can save anyone who refuses to save themselves. You start to see that loving someone doesn't mean losing yourself to their chaos. It means holding space for them while keeping your boundaries intact. Detachment lets you give without expectation and walk away without resentment. There's a strength that comes with emotional detachment, the kind that can't be shaken by temporary storms. You learn to stop reacting to everything that tries to pull you off balance. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop participating in drama that doesn't align with your peace. You realize that some situations resolve themselves when you remove your energy from them. Detachment gives you perspective. It allows you to step back and see the bigger picture, instead of being blinded by emotion in the moment. You begin to trust that what's meant for you will never require you to lose your sanity or your self-respect to keep it. Detachment also teaches patience. It shows you that not everything needs an immediate answer, not every wound needs an instant fix, and not every person deserves immediate forgiveness. Some things heal in silence, in time, and in distance. Emotional intelligence allows you to give space for clarity to emerge naturally. It teaches you to wait without anxiety and to let things unfold without control. You stop rushing outcomes, and instead you begin to focus on what you can control: your attitude, your peace, and your energy. Detachment is not giving up, it's growing up. It's realizing that your happiness is too precious to be dictated by temporary circumstances. When you detach emotionally, you learn how to be peaceful in uncertain situations. You stop trying to force people to understand you. You stop needing closure from those who aren't capable of giving it. You learn that sometimes the closure you're looking for is found in silence, in acceptance, in moving forward. You no longer need someone to acknowledge the pain they caused in order to heal. You take responsibility for your healing, your emotions, and your growth. That's when you step into your power fully. When you no longer let anyone else's behavior decide your emotional state. Emotional detachment also reveals who truly values you. The people who only loved your availability disappear. When you stop fixing others, the ones who depended on your weakness for their strength fall away. Detachment removes the noise and leaves only truth. You begin to see who stays because they care, not because they need. You start surrounding yourself with people who bring peace instead of drama, understanding instead of judgment, and love instead of control. The more detached you become from external chaos, the more connected you become to your inner peace. There's something liberating about not being ruled by emotions. It doesn't mean you don't feel deeply. It means you don't let temporary feelings destroy lasting peace. You become steady, grounded, and present. You stop reacting to every problem as if it's the end of the world. You trust yourself more. You learn to respond with grace instead of anger. You begin to notice how powerful stillness feels in moments that used to overwhelm you. You start realizing that nothing outside of you should have the authority to disturb what's inside of you. Detachment gives you that authority back. And the truth is, emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you start loving correctly. You love with awareness, not attachment. You love with freedom, not fear. You love from fullness, not from lack. You no longer cling to people to feel complete because you have learned to be whole within yourself. Detachment allows you to enjoy connections without depending on them for your happiness. It gives you emotional clarity and teaches you that peace is not something you find in others. It's something you create within. Detachment is the art of letting go gracefully. It's knowing when to walk away from what hurts without needing to make noise. It's the quiet confidence of saying, I'm at peace, even if you're not. It's the strength to hold space for love without needing to possess it. It's the freedom of knowing that no matter what happens, you will be okay because your peace comes from within, not from the approval or attention of anyone else. Emotional detachment is not coldness. It is wisdom wrapped in calm. It's the moment you stop begging for energy that drains you and start honoring the serenity that sustains you. It's not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of self. You don't outshine toxic people by fighting them, you outgrow them. The more you grow, the less interested you become in proving yourself to those who don't want to understand you. The moment you stop matching their energy, you begin to elevate beyond it. Fighting toxic people keeps you entangled in their chaos, but outgrowing them sets you free. It's not your job to expose their darkness. Your only job is to stay in your light. When you rise, their noise fades. When you evolve, their manipulation loses its grip. Outgrowing toxic people means you've stopped living for their approval, their validation, and their acknowledgement. You've started to see that no amount of explaining or defending will ever change the mind of someone who feeds off misunderstanding you. You stop trying to make peace with people who thrive on conflict. You stop trying to please people who find comfort in your discomfort. Growth becomes your quiet rebellion. You begin to understand that not everyone is meant to walk with you to your next chapter. Some people are lessons that teach you strength, clarity, and boundaries. The reason they triggered you so deeply was not because they were powerful, but because they revealed parts of yourself you still needed to heal. Outgrowing toxic people isn't just about removing them. It's about healing the parts of you that allowed them to stay. It's about realizing that you no longer have to explain why you deserve respect, loyalty, and peace. You begin to see that you can love someone and still choose to leave when their presence begins to cost you your sanity. Growth shows you that peace is not something you chase. It's something you cultivate. And you can't cultivate it in environments that constantly try to destroy it. The moment you decide to grow, you will feel resistance. Toxic people will sense the shift. They'll try to guilt you, provoke you, or pull you back into old versions of yourself that no longer exist. They will accuse you of changing, of being distant, of being selfish. But growth is not selfish, it's sacred. It's the realization that your energy is valuable and your time is precious. You can't keep pouring into relationships that only take from you. You can't keep explaining yourself to people who refuse to listen. When you begin to outgrow toxicity, you realize that silence becomes your language, boundaries become your armor, and peace becomes your home. You stop fighting for attention, you stop arguing to be understood, and you stop shrinking to make others feel comfortable. You learn that true growth is quiet, graceful, and powerful. Outgrowing toxic people doesn't mean you hate them. It means you no longer participate in their dysfunction. You stop being their emotional punching bag. You stop reacting to their manipulation. You stop letting their negativity dictate your mood. You begin to see their behavior for what it is. A reflection of their own wounds, not your worth. The way people treat you says everything about them and nothing about you. And when you finally internalize that truth, you stop taking things personally. You stop being hurt by words meant to provoke you. You stop expecting empathy from people who are incapable of giving it. Growth teaches you that not everyone deserves access to your emotions. Some people only understand chaos, and when you offer them peace, they will call it arrogance. That's when you know you've outgrown them. Outgrowing toxic people is an act of maturity. It's no longer needing to argue when someone lies about you. It's no longer seeking closure when someone disrespects you. It's no longer chasing clarity from someone who thrives on confusion. It's saying, I see you, but I choose not to engage. It's choosing to walk away without slamming the door, because you no longer need to prove a point. You simply let them be who they are, while you focus on who you're becoming. Growth teaches you to invest your energy where it's valued. It shows you that your time is too sacred to spend convincing others of your truth. When you elevate, you start to attract peace, love, and stability. The same people who once drained you begin to fade into the background, because they can't breathe in the air you now inhabit. You will know you've outgrown toxicity when drama no longer excites you, when gossip no longer interests you, and when peace feels more valuable than attention. You will know you've outgrown it when you stop being reactive and start being intentional. When you stop proving and start preserving. When you stop trying to win people over and start focusing on inner harmony. Growth changes what you tolerate. It changes what you respond to. It changes how you show up for yourself. You realize that your silence is not weakness. It's power. You stop matching people's disrespect with more disrespect. You stop letting anger pull you out of character. You start mastering emotional control, and that mastery makes you untouchable. Toxic people will often say you've changed because they no longer have access to the old version of you. The one who tolerated their disrespect, who over-explained, who accepted less than they deserved. But that's the point of growth. You are supposed to change. You are supposed to evolve beyond what once broke you. You are supposed to outgrow the cycles that kept you stuck. Growth is not meant to be understood by everyone, especially not by those who benefited from your lack of it. You learn that you don't owe anyone the version of yourself that existed before your healing. The people who truly love you will grow with you, not resent your evolution. There's a quiet peace that comes when you realize you no longer need to fight for what drains you. You stop seeking revenge and start seeking balance. You start surrounding yourself with people who bring calm instead of conflict. People who challenge you to grow instead of compete. People who support your peace instead of threaten it. When you outgrow toxic people, your entire world begins to shift. You no longer chase closure, you create it. You no longer seek validation, you embody it. You no longer need to prove your worth because you've built it from within. Outgrowing toxic people means accepting that not everyone will celebrate your healing. Some will resent it. Some will mock it. Some will try to pull you back into old patterns because your peace exposes their lack of it. But you can't dim your light to make others feel comfortable in their darkness. You can't shrink yourself to fit places you've already outgrown. You must keep rising, even if it means rising alone. Growth is lonely sometimes, but it's better than being surrounded by those who keep you small. It's better than living in cycles that rob you of your potential. Eventually, You stop seeing outgrowing people as loss and start seeing it as alignment. You realize that your path narrows as you rise, not because you're meant to be isolated, but because peace requires discernment. Not everyone is meant to sit at your table. Not everyone can handle your growth. Outgrowing toxic people means saying goodbye to old versions of yourself. The one who tolerated disrespect, who feared being alone, who mistook attention for affection. You start embracing solitude as sacred. You begin to see that peace is the reward for every painful goodbye you had the courage to make. And that is how you outshine toxic people. Not by fighting their darkness, but by shining so brightly that their shadows can no longer reach you. You stop engaging in battles that no longer matter. You stop lowering your vibration to match theirs. You start rising higher until their noise becomes irrelevant. Your healing becomes your victory, your peace becomes your protection, and your growth becomes your quiet revenge. Because the moment you outgrow toxicity, you realize that there's no need to prove anything to anyone. The light you carry speaks for itself.